Hello and welcome to Ukraine Today. I'm Volodymyr Solohub. Join me now to discuss the E.U Ukraine Association Agreement and the visa-free prospects for Ukrainians is the E.U. Ambassador to Ukraine, Mr. Tombiński. Mr. Tombiński, welcome to Ukraine Today. On January the 1st, the deep and comprehensive free trade area as part of the broader association agreement came into force between Ukraine and the EU countries. Now it's been a bit more than 2 months after the implementation of this free trade area. Does the EU have any feedback on the benefits of implementation of this free trade area for the EU itself?
For the EU itself, not yet, because the time is quite short. From the European point of view, we also have to keep in mind that the European Union lowered the tariffs or elevated the tariffs already in April 2014. So we will be almost in 2 years. It will be almost 2 years since this unilateral, the so-called autonomous trade measures have been introduced by the European Union. We've seen for this period, because 2 years it allows for a better analysis, the 2 months only, we've seen several specific trends in the trade. First, Ukrainian trade or exportation to the European Union has been very much handicapped by the lowering of prices on world market for commodities. It reflects the structure of the Ukrainian exportation to the European Union. Therefore, volumes in tons or in quantities are almost the same, but the value for this quantity of exportation is lower than it has been. So this is something that reflects the general trend on international markets. Second, what we've seen was no major disruption on European market. European producers are very keen in following what happens on the internal market of the EU, and are always very alerted against an increase on offer from a new direction on the European market. It didn't happen. We did see as well use of some quotas in the agriculture sector, whereas for quotas, so many people do talk about quotas. We should also bear in mind that quotas means that you have certified goods that are exported for a very low or no taxes to the European market. But the same product can be also exported with beyond quotas, but with certain tariffs. Our major concern looking at the DCFTA is that there were very few new products from Ukraine coming on the European market. So this getting in a large spectrum of offer did not happen, which shows also the weaknesses of Ukrainian producers and Ukrainian trade.
Well, this is what was one of the concerns of the Ukrainian businesses, that once the free trade area starts operating, Ukrainian companies, Ukrainian producers, will not be competitive with the European counterparts. Do you still see these fears among Ukrainian businesses?
I do not see this fear, because Ukrainian enterprises and Ukrainian products can be competitive. The problem is that Ukrainian businessmen don't know or don't dare to get on the European market. What we've encountered in different places in Ukraine while talking to small, medium, big business was this paternalistic approach. Many people, we have a very good product, help us to sell the product on the European market. Our response is, we are not traders. We are responsible for creating rules. It's your product, and your profit if you sell it, and it should be your motivation to get on other markets. Trust yourself. Don't ask us to carry out your product from one place to another place and to sell it on the market. It is not in this way that the European market functions.
Mr. Musson, can we talk about this larger document, the association agreement, which is still pending ratification by the European by the EU structures, because it has not been yet ratified by the Netherlands, and the Dutch referendum on this question is on April the 6th. How do you see the development in this case?
Out of 28 member states, 26 already completed the proceedings of ratification, and the European Parliament did the same. So we have a framework that allows us for provisional application of the association agreement and of the deep and comprehensive free trade area. Two remaining was, I hope I'm not mistaken, that only Belgium that completed the ratification by all the 7 Belgian parliaments did not yet deposit the ratification instrument in the General Secretariat, but there were no problem with the ratification in Belgium. Whereas in Netherlands, there was this citizens' initiative to call for a referendum. And we don't have yet any expertise with such kind of referendum, so we have to wait for an answer from first Dutch citizens with regard to this referendum. How do the Dutch respond to the question? And second, to the response given by Dutch institutions, Parliament and the government, to the outcome of the referendum. I would refrain from speculating on what happens if something happens, because this is not the way how we should think. The fact is that we are in the phase of provisional application of the association agreement, and no one is talking now about withdrawing this provisional application. 26, almost 27 already ratified it in fully. So it would also be quite difficult to explain to others why they should then suddenly withdraw from something they decided because of this consultative referendum on done by the Dutch citizens. So let us wait until we know what is the outcome of the referendum, and until we know what the answer will be given by Dutch institutions to this referendum.
Yeah, let's see what happens in April. Mr. Ambassador, another topic which I would like to discuss with you is the long-anticipated visa-free regime for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainian parliament is adopting the so-called visa-free laws with great pressure, both from the citizens of Ukraine as well as from Ukraine's Western partners. But looks like the Ukrainian MPs are still trying to leave in those laws some loopholes for possible maneuvering. And you yourself just last month said that some of the laws which were adopted in the context of this visa-free package were not satisfactory to the EU. So are you confident that the Ukrainian parliament in the end will be able to adopt the laws which are in form and in substance satisfactory to the EU?
I very much hope so, because this is not only the requirement by the EU. This is something that has been taken as a commitment by Ukrainian parliament and by Ukrainian authorities. This visa-free regime is something that we are talking about for at least 6 years. The Visa Action Plan has been adopted in 2010. So we may ask ourselves why it took so much time to get to a certain legislative process. It would be really advisable to Ukrainian deputies and Ukrainian parliament to adopt the laws not after midnight, not 5 to 10 or 5 to 12, but even after midnight. We were very much hoping for the completion of the work by end 2015. Still, some elements were pending. Some laws have been adopted. Some laws, and especially the law on the asset declarations, is still under our loophole, under scrutiny, because it does not correspond with the purpose of the law. What is the purpose of this whole exercise? It's not only the question of this or other small formula in the law, but it is again, it is about gaining trust of Ukrainian citizens. This parliament started the work with all the commitment to regain trust of people. And if we see that parliamentarians don't wish to submit themselves to the check of their property, assets, and how they are behaving, it is worrisome, because they are protecting their own interest and taking citizens as hostages. Some parliamentarians even went on criticizing me that I'm snubbing vodka with some other people and therefore I'm so tough on this issue. I would suggest to these parliamentarians, don't measure by yourself. This is not about snubbing vodka. This is about a principled approach to specific commitments that the Ukrainian parliament has taken on itself and should deliver on. If this is not done, then we should not criticize the European Union. It has been done in Georgia, it has been done in other countries. It would be difficult to explain to Ukrainian citizens and also to European citizens that you may exclude from a check gifts given to Ukrainian officials that amount in value for 12 years minimum salary. It is not, I guess, in a sense of sound understanding that people shouldn't be allowed to take gifts that may impact on their decisions. Therefore, it is about regaining trust with Ukrainian people, but it is also an element that people tend to forget. Ukraine is asking for different kinds of assistance. Why should we convince European taxpayers or European experts or other countries to commit to Ukraine if we see that those who are in charge of Ukrainian legislations or higher officials are trying to exempt themselves from being checked? This will not be adopted if the visa-free regime will not be adopted if there is not trust that people are committed also to a certain set of rules. The other element is this agency for prevention of corruption. How could you explain to someone that it was not enough 8 months to create an agency that should be composed out of 5 people, and this agency that should deal and treat this electronic declarations of assets? It goes hand in hand. If it is not done, then this is the responsibility of Ukrainian parliament, that some people preferred not to do it because of not being willing to submit themselves to the checks.
Mr. Ambassador, do you think Ukraine's Western partners should pressure more the Ukrainian parliament to adopt these laws on time? Because it looks like the pressure from the Ukrainian people doesn't really work. So perhaps the Western partners should come and exercise more pressure on the Ukrainian parliament to adopt these laws in time to get the visa-free travel for the Ukrainians in time.
The main issue is the ownership. The pressure does not always help in the ownership. My dream is that people will realize that this is in the interest of Ukraine, that this is not in the interest of the EU. Therefore, I'm very cautious with the pressure from outside. If it is only done under the pressure, then I will be in doubt about sustainability of the commitment. It should be done out of the understanding that Ukraine needs it and that Ukraine, 2 years after Maidan, changed the page and turned the page and should work now in another spirit of commitment to the people.
Well, let's see if Ukrainian MPs do indeed have this understanding. Mr. Ambassador, many thanks for joining us today. We were discussing the prospects of visa-free travel for Ukrainians to the EU, as well as the fate of the Ukraine-EU Association Agreement with the Ambassador of the EU to Ukraine, Mr. Tombiński. I'm Volodymyr Rasulogub. Thank you for watching Ukraine Today.